today's video, I'm going to see if I can replicate this design on jeans, or this engraving on jeans. My wife nicely shared this image with me. I'm not sure where she got it off the internet. I said, okay, I'll give it a try. So I raided her closet, found some jeans, which of course is not true because I wouldn't be here today if that was the case. But I found some old jeans that she wanted to get rid of. And I made a design in Canva and started up the laser to see if I can make something that resembles somewhat that image that she sent me. And of course the jean colors are different, and the jean material might be different than that of the image, so it may not come out the same way. I expected that. Now, ideally I should be putting a piece of wood in the pocket to make it really rigid and flat, but for testing's sake, I'm just going to get it as flat as I can in the laser machine and give it a go to see how it turns out. So here it goes. Now, one of the hardest parts when trying a different material with the laser is to know what strength and speed to make the laser go to ensure you don't burn right through. Now you can see here a close-up, it's not so bad. I did put the laser fairly low. It probably could have been a bit stronger because the butterflies really didn't come out that well. I do like the dandelion there. I mean, it's not bad for a first trial, but you definitely do need to improve. So I dialed it up a little bit, did put a little bit more power, same speed, and a different design that had a little bit more depth to the picture, I guess. So we'll see how that one turns out here. Once again, I created a design in Canva. I didn't do too much to the design other than changing the grayscale, the white and black balance. But you can sort of see what it's coming out here, a little bit clearer than the dandelion and butterfly design I made earlier. As you get close to the end here, again, it probably would have been better if I had put a piece of wood underneath, and that's the design that I was trying to get, and that's what we got. So it does look a bit better, a little bit more distinct in this image compared to the dandelion one I made earlier. Now, as I was letting the laser engrave these images, I did some research, further research, and I found out that doing this type of laser engraving on jean material does tend to, of course, weaken the material. Obviously, we're sort of burning off a layer of jean material, as well as when you wash it, all that light color tends to wash off as well. So it might be good now, but it may not be good as we go along. So I decided, well, I mean, the design looks pretty cool on material. So I thought, hey, why don't I just do a design on the material, and then I can make it as a coaster somehow using resin epoxy. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm going to try 4 different designs. This one I'm just going to start with our logo because, hey, that's always a good test to know whether or not something is working or not. So here we are, different jean pants, different material, of course. And at the same settings that I had on the previous design, it actually burned right through. So I definitely needed to make a change. So I cut it down to about half the strength, same speed again. And it definitely turned out much better at this time around. Exactly what I was looking for. And actually it does look much more distinct now with that darker jean compared to the lighter jeans that we used earlier. And here's the settings. So about 200 millimeters per second at about 19.5 power. And of course intervals of 0.1 millimeters. And just to clarify, our laser is a 100-watt CO2 laser. It might be a different setting altogether for your laser if it's a lower wattage diode laser or CO2 laser. So these are the settings that seem to work for me. Here you can see it. It looks pretty cool, and I can see how that would look really cool on a coaster. So. And you can see it didn't go through the material here either. It's just on the surface, or the surface layer of the jean. So it's looking pretty promising. And based off of the look of the jean design, I figured, hey, it might be pretty cool for D&D, seeing that my son is into D&D. As you probably noticed in the previous video, made a D&D table. So I thought, I might try some D&D themed coasters to see if that works out with the jean, and of course, again, planning to put some epoxy resin over top of it. So here we are, just cutting it out and trying out some different. Still looks pretty good. Looking at that there. Now this one, for some reason, actually went through, even though I used the same settings, but I guess the design itself was much darker, so it ended up being more strength when it was actually doing that laser engraving, because it is on an image type of setting. The darker the color, the stronger the laser will engrave into the material, and that's why it probably went through. This one was probably a bit lighter, still came through a little bit more compared to our logo. It should be fine for our coaster design. So now it's time to put those jean cutouts onto the coasters, or these are just plywood, like birch plywood, I think, or this one's actually aspen plywood that I used, some waste pieces that I had left in the garage from previous projects. Again, just trying to line them up, and I'm just going to use some contact spray glue here just to at least adhere the jeans to the piece of wood, and then we'll be able to cover it with the resin epoxy. Now, one of the issues I was having with these jean cutouts is that the jeans were like a stretchy jean, so when I started gluing it up, it really started stretching easily because it was contact glue. I probably would have been better off with a slow drying glue instead, but this is what I had, and it turned out quite well. I'd give it a B+ at least. But now it's just time to get it all lined up so that I can put the resin epoxy over top. I actually ended up having to I thought I was going to use that piece of cardboard, but it wasn't long enough, so I ended up adding some more parchment paper. And here we are adding the clear epoxy resin, using my brush to bring it right up to the edge. Now, this is the technique I usually use when making epoxy covered coasters out of wood. I would just cover it up, pour it on top, cover it right to the edge, and then with the surface tension, it wouldn't drip over. Or maybe once in a while, maybe 1 out of 40, I might have one that actually ends up dripping off of the coasters. Here I'm just using the torch again, of course, taking the air bubbles out, or at least what I thought were air bubbles, but I think what happened was there was some of the material from the jean itself that was sort of floating to the top, that white. And then the next day I came back, and this is what it looked like. I guess there, with the material hanging over the edge of the coasters, it acted like a wick, and a lot of the epoxy actually flowed over, sticking all of my spacers underneath right to it, so it became one, and I had to actually chisel them off and then sand it off clean. And that's why we do tests like this with new materials, because you never know what results you might get. And again, I didn't think of the material being like a wick over the edge there, so ended up wasting a lot of resin there. I could have done 2 sets for that amount of resin that I poured over. So here I'm sanding the edges as well to get that clean, sharper edge, so that it will, the next time I do the resin coating, it will have that surface tension so that it won't drip over. At least that's the plan anyways. Hopefully it'll work the same way as it does with my wood coasters. And here I'm actually sanding the top of it as well, because I did leave it quite a long time, I think a day or more, so it was quite dry, so I had to make sure I scuff it up a little bit. And here's the second coat, and we will come back the next day to see if it actually turns out the way I planned it. We shall see. So not too bad, except for some reason, again, I think what happened is that the material actually ended up floating. The loose material from the laser engraving part floated to the top. This one, I don't know, with my logo one has a bump on it. I guess for whatever reason there was a hole in one of the areas, and it kind of caused a big problem. But I did like the look of it at this point before I put the resin on, the jean look. I really like that. So what I did is I made another one, this one here, and actually used just a clear coat. And I really like the look of it. You can actually see the blue, because the one with the resin, they just looked black. With, you can see the image a little bit, but really not a good result. So in this one, it definitely made a difference. You can see the blue, and with the clear coat, I just put one on so far. It looks so good, and I'm going to try put some more coats on, and I'm pretty sure it'll be a much cleaner look to it. And I might use this in the future. What do you think? Is this something worthwhile to try out in other designs with this material or with different materials? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you found this video to be helpful or at least entertaining, please hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, hey, why not subscribe to our channel? And we'll see you here again at Dusty Workbench. Thanks for watching. Take care.